Hello, welcome to Metalnet TV. I'm your host, Sarah, and today we are doing a band spotlight on the band Stands on Sapphires. This is the first installment of many, and today we're meeting the band's singer, Bethany. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, Bethany. Welcome to Metalnet.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. So I am so excited to have you guys as our first band spotlight. And I want everybody to learn about like everything about you guys. So we're going to start with you. And let's just start, for anybody who doesn't know anything about you, let's just start with who's in the band.
Awesome. So obviously it's myself. I am the lead vocalist. And then also my husband, Trevor, is our guitarist, music writer. He's the guy, he's the artist. And then our best friend, actually his childhood friend, Wade, is our bassist, and they both help me with backup vocals. So it's just three of us actually.
That's amazing. And so for anybody, I imagine this is kind of the question that nobody really wants to answer because there's probably a range of musical styles, but for anybody who hasn't heard your music, how would you describe it to somebody who hasn't heard it before?
I like to describe our music, if I'm going to be really simple, is I think of it as like orchestral hard rock. If you want to get super technical, we really dabble in almost every subgenre of hard rock. So we have some kind of dance rock, definitely orchestral, some ballads. We are hard rock, almost on the border of metal, and I'm sure we'll maybe get into that later. But that in a nutshell is we are just like a good variety of hard rock.
Yep, I would definitely say that, just having heard your music. So who are some of the band's influences? Like I'm going to talk to you obviously specifically about your influences in that, but who are the influences that the band kind of has looked to for inspiration?
We have a very wide range of inspiration. Like I'm sure most artists do. There's not like just this one guy and I just want to be like him. But since my husband Trevor is very much like our primary songwriter, his inspirations definitely come out of a lot of like 80s music, like 80s rock music, which I'm sure you might like pick up on. We say like we're influenced by Extreme, Van Halen, even Meatloaf, which is that one throws people for a loop because Meatloaf is like almost, Broadway show music, and our music is not like that. But if you listen to Meatloaf and you listen to the layers upon layers that he puts in his music, there's always 20, 30, 40 things going on in a single track. And we are very much inspired like that. It sounds like it's just me and the guys, but then there's like some bells and there's some violins going and there's just so many layers. So that's our biggest influence production wise. I'm very much inspired by bands like Skillet, In This Moment, Flyleaf, lots of kind of, I'd say the turn of like the kind of almost, I don't want to say like emo rock, but that like post emo rock, like that kind of phase when like hard rock was like really big, like you turn on the radio and like every song was like a rock song. Like any band that kind of came out of that like mid 2000s and like 2010 era, like because that's when I grew up. That's my big influence. And then it's interesting because our bandmate Wade, he's got such a diverse taste and he listens to completely different music than we do, even though we all have inspirations that overlap. So I think like the three of us together having completely different inspirations coming together really help us kind of see the different angles of how we can make our music. It's not just guitar, bass, drums, vocals. It's a little bit of this, maybe a little K-pop, a little Japanese inspired, like just little spices and things like that. But those would be like the main bands that I say really influence us, along with a few prolific Japanese rock bands like One OK Rock and My First Story. We really love Japanese rock. So those are all big inspirations for us.
And how did you find those Japanese rock bands? Like, was that something that came to your attention through, like, did you search it out, or did it come to your attention some other way?
Trevor and Wade are like really into, or we're really into watching like anime and things like that. And then I when I kind of came along and became a part of the picture, that definitely rubbed off on me. And so a lot of, if you watch anime or Japanese stuff, a lot of their theme songs are very like heavy rock inspired. And so I think it was kind of a combination of being like, wow, this music is so intense and like produced, that then we kind of like then sought out more of that. And I think the big one was One OK Rock was the very first one that I got introduced to. And we did actually cover one of their songs. It was the first cover that we ever did. And it just like opened up a whole new world of what music could be for us. So I think it was a combination of it kind of coming to us through like our other influences, like our other things that we enjoy, but then also, digging deeper and then finding more similar bands to that, because the other band we look to a lot is My First Story, and the singer happens to be the brother of the singer of One OK Rock. So they're not dissimilar, like they're very related. But lately One OK Rock has gone a little more like pop, and My First Story has stayed like very like rock. And so we just love, if you ever listen to like Japanese rock music, which I know sounds really random, but when you start listening to it, there's always something going on. It's like super produced and elaborate, and it's just, there's a layer to everything. And I think like that kind of has just made that wow in us, that has then kind of pushed us to like explore it more and then explore in our own music.
Okay, so that's something that really spoke to you, and you wanted to dig deeper and keep opening doors and look for more and more bands. Yeah,
absolutely. And we just love Japanese culture in general, so it's kind of easy to lean into that.
That sounds great. So was music something that you had an interest in, but did you know right away that you wanted to play in bands, or is that something that came later for you?
That is, I feel like kind of a long story. So if you don't mind me like digging into that a little bit, because it is actually quite personal for me. So in order to answer that question, I kind of have to take it back to being a kid. And when I was a kid, I don't remember this because I was so young, but my mom, of course, tells me all the stories. I was always singing all the time. I would just be, any kind of musical, like my mom loves old movies. So she'd turn on, of course, like musicals from like the 50s. And I don't know, I'm like 5 and I'm just like, ooh, and I sing every single song. I would make my whole family come over and just sit down, and I'd sing like the whole musical for them and just like put on a show. Again, I don't remember this, but legend has it that's what happened. And as I got older, I when I got into grade school, I joined choir, and I did choir, every single year that I was in school, because I did like singing. But I developed this really deep-seated fear, like really scared of letting anybody hear me sing on my own, like as a solo singer. And so all the years that I was in choir, I never would like audition for a solo, even on days when my teacher would be like, okay, it's examination day, you got to sing a bar for me. I would just have a panic attack. Like I would melt down. I couldn't deal with it. And I don't know why. And I've asked myself so many times, like, did somebody say something to me that hurt my feelings? Did I have an experience that like I don't remember, but like really
you have no
shaped...
recollection of like a moment where somebody like damaged you emotionally to cause this?
Exactly. And in my biography that I write on our website, in a very early version of that, I did blame somebody for it. And then as we started writing music, and I had to take that step, and I had to be bold and learn to just stand on my own and be a single vocalist, I started to reflect on it more, and I realized like it wasn't really anybody's fault. Like I can't say like, Jenny just like cut me down and she hurt my feelings. Like there wasn't any of that. I think it was just a self-founded fear. And I think sometimes we can do that to ourselves. We just get a little insecure, and we get a little bit scared, and we just let that snowball into this narrative that like we're not good enough, or we can't do this thing, out of this fear that we've just kind of let grow inside. And I know that was my story.
Bethany?
Sorry?
Are you a perfectionist?
I don't think of myself as a perfectionist. I truly don't, but I'm kind of wondering if maybe I am.
Because I wonder, like, sometimes it's is it because you were trying to be a perfect singer and you were afraid that you weren't a perfect singer, and that, I cannot be perfect and therefore I can't do it, or something like that? Because clearly you wanted to be a singer, right? So you kept joining choir. It's not like you stopped doing choir altogether. I mean, I don't know, maybe you had to as a kid, but it feels like you had this like push and pull of I'm doing choir, but I didn't want to try to do a solo. I'm in a band, but I'm still having
it was a lot of push and pull. Absolutely. And when we decided to start taking our music seriously, and I was like, who's our singer going to be? Like, I wasn't even gonna say me. And Trevor was just like, well, you are. And I was like, what? No, not me. Like, I'll sing backup for you guys and I'll do like some band management, but like, I'm not gonna be a singer. He's like, no, you're gonna be a singer. And like, I'm not kidding. The first time we went to sit down and record our very first song, My Affliction, the original version of it, I actually did have a meltdown. I panicked. I started crying. Like, thank God it was just me and Trevor, because if anybody else saw me like that, I was a mess. I was an absolute mess. And but it needed to happen. Like, I needed to break through that fear. I needed to just get over it, and I needed to just embrace it. And it took me a long time. Like, it wasn't like I wrote one song and I was good. It took through our first album for me to start feeling confident. And I think, just like you said, Sarah, a few minutes ago, I had this idea that if I wasn't the best, if I wasn't this Mariah Carey, amazing Maria Brink, like out the gate, good to go, like the best artist on the cover of like Rolling Stone, then why should I bother? Right. I had made that narrative for myself that if I wasn't the epitome of the best, then I shouldn't try, you know? And I know that's not true now, but that was the narrative that I gave myself. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's very relatable. I imagine that a lot of people feel that way. I've been seeing, I saw a professional drummer in a band that tours post the world's okayest drummer mug. And I thought that was amazing, because I was like, that's kind of revolutionary, because like,
Yeah.
imagine just taking that pressure off yourself. And I'm sure it was a joke. I mean, they're probably like an exceptional drummer or whatever, but just like, imagine just like if everybody just took that pressure off themselves and just be like, the world's
Yeah.
okayest whatever. But I think
Yeah.
what you said is very relatable. I imagine that most people probably feel that way, but I think you're so brave to share that, because that is right there, like on your blog and in your bio on your website. But it was sharing that part of kind of getting past it, and just like just owning it and getting past it and moving forward.
I think it definitely was, especially when I wrote it in the beginning. And I had so many insecurities in the beginning that I think I felt that, like, as long as I get ahead of the curve, as long as I get ahead of the criticism I know is going to come, then at least I can't be like, oh, my feelings, right? Because I've already admitted it. I've already admitted it. And now I don't feel that way anymore, because like, it doesn't matter. Like, after doing this for 2 or 3 years, like, I see my heroes get torn to bits all the time. And so it doesn't really matter where you fall on the no one knows who I am or like I'm super famous scale. Someone's not going to jive with what you're putting out. And that's part of it. You just have to accept that, like, some people are going to love you and some people aren't, but whose opinion matters are those that do care and those that do love what you do. And so now I leave it up there as a testimony of, you know, this is where I started, and I might not be there now. And like, we're always growing, we're always changing. Like, we're never the same person forever. And that's what's awesome about, you know, going through life and getting older and getting experiences. But now I leave it. Yeah. Just like you said, I leave it as like a, hey, you know what? This is honest. This is true. I could feel this bio with a bunch of fluffy stuff, like I won this award or like I did, you know, but that doesn't mean anything. We see so much of that, I think, in today's society with, oh, the 500 best companies in the world. We see so many of these people being like, here's my accolades, that I'm like, that I can't relate to that. And that matters. It does. But what matters more is just like, if I landed on, you know, my heroes thing, and they were just like, you know what, this is everything I went through to get to where I was, because like, hey, I'm a human just like you. I'd be like, right there, I love you. Right. It's so much more personal.
Yeah. And speaking of which, I think you have an absolutely beautiful voice. I think your voice is so pretty, and I love your balance of, you know, the pretty voice. You have a really cool voice, but you have a really pretty voice, and then you do that little bit of that growl when it like when the song needs it, and you know, when it
Mm-hmm.
requires it. So my next question is for you, especially being somebody who has had those like things that you had to work through, is once you got there, how did you find that balance of, you know, how do I approach this song, and when do I sing like really pretty, and when do I add the growl, and when do I like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like how do you approach like how you sing something, how do you put your touches on it emotionally as a vocalist?
That is, wow, that is like such a good question. And I mean, for the sake of sounding like a too artsy, I just kind of think like, what is it that this song needs in this moment? Like what is the message that I'm trying to convey? And how can I do that through my use of, my clean kind of super feminine vocals and the combination of the screams that I do. And I think in the beginning it started where like I wasn't quite 100% confident with like my more aggressive vocals, like the screams and the growl that I add. I was still like learning as we were going. And so in the beginning, I kind of did it as like more of hits, like in the background. Like I didn't really do it as like the lead vocals because I didn't feel that I had practiced enough, I suppose, to like be fluent in it. And then with our last album, I didn't quite feel that way. I felt like I could kind of put more into it. But I think it comes from a combination of just being inspired by other bands that do similar things. And also just knowing like what my strengths are, to kind of tie back to the beginning, just being insecure across the board. I kind of got to a point where I'm like, no, like I know what I'm good at and I know what maybe I'm like not meant to do. And so instead of trying to be something that I'm not or fill the shoes of somebody else that I look up to, what does it look like to just be unique and be myself? How do I feel like I want to express myself with this song? And I think it's easy when like, okay, the song's picking up here, like now's a good time to kind of go for it. And I think we've fallen into, and especially me as a vocalist has fallen into what I like my sound, like what I like to do in my music. But I mean, the very short answer is, what does the song need? What does the song need? And what do I feel like is going to best convey the message that I want to say in this song? And that's when I'll start to put in like a little bit of the growl or a little scream or something like that. Or sometimes I just want to be like, I just want to scream here, I just need to scream.
Sometimes you just need to.
Just a little bit.
So, as a musician as an artist, that's what you need to do, is what's best for the song. Do you ever find yourself getting that pull of, like you mentioned some of the bands that you're influenced by, but are there any particular singers that you just love? And maybe you sound nothing like them. And maybe you just don't do what they do and they don't do what you do. But do you ever find that pull of like, oh, I really just want to do that thing? Like, is there ever that conflict of like, oh, I wish I could do it, or I want to try it and it's not working? Have you ever found yourself in the studio like where you're trying to force something that can't happen, and then either you have to let it go or somebody has to tell you to let it go? I imagine that happens to everybody at some point, especially in the beginning, but have you ever been there?
Absolutely. And it's really hard for me to say like this one person, because I do answer that question. If someone puts me on the spot, they're like, best vocalist, go. And
what's a name? Go.
Yeah, I usually default to like Maria Brank, because she is just like a really good example of somebody who has a lot of variety in her vocal abilities. But like I truly can't just pick one. But to answer like the latter part of your question, do I feel that push pull? Absolutely. Like, and in times like that, we've actually did it on one of our songs. For an example, we had written like a super high part that like I was supposed to do in like a kind of like a squealy scream, like think like 80s David Lee Roth with his like super high, like not even human, like kind of squeals. We had written that. And I just looked at Trevor and I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, and I practiced it and I tried and I was like, no, like I can't, like I've heard other vocalists do it and I know it's possible, but I'm like, it's just not me. And so I said, you can do that on guitar. It's like a guitar part. And he did. And it sounds really awesome on guitar. But it was just being like, as much as I want to do that, and it'd be so cool to be like, yeah, like just this ridiculously high thing. I'm like, I'm not going to want to do that live. I'm not going to want to get on stage and replicate that. It's not going to be enjoyable for me. And so as much as I desire to be able to do that, it's not me. And so I just said, no, like that's not what I'm going to do. But there have been moments when we're like sitting down recording and I'm just like, you know what? I'm changing this. Nope, not doing it that way.
You're like, in my fantasy, sure.
but not now.
How about songwriting? Are you one of the songwriters in the band?
So Trevor and I write the melodies together, and then I write all of our lyrics for the most part. So I don't like to take like full songwriting credit because it is very like collaborative. But I do, like Trevor and I do work on everything together. And so like we're kind of he would kill me. We're kind of co-writers. He does most of the heavy lifting.
Okay. And then when you go in to co-write with him, what's your approach? Like, what's your sort of emotional, mental, like, are you
Mhm.
more methodical? Are you more go with the flow? Do you work off of him? Or are you, like,
Mhm.
I always like to know, like, are you more of an organized, like, these are my ideas, I'm going to come in? Or are you more just like, figure out what the vibe is in the room and go with it? What's your practices for writing songs?
When we write and when I write, I just want it to feel like it belongs, whatever that might be. If that's the melody, if that's like a riff, if that's a backing vocal, whatever's going on with our songs, it just needs to feel like, yes, that feels right there. And
Mhm.
so even though I think we all bring our ideas to the table, what I really particularly love about the three of us working together is that we all do come with like very strong ideas, like, I think it'd be great if we did this here. But we can sit down and just be like, you know what? No, that's not right for this song, or that doesn't feel right. And we can just agree to disagree or rework something so that it does work. And so when Trevor and I are sitting down to write, oftentimes he's thinking of things, I think, from like a guitar player perspective, because that's his primary, artist expression, is he's a guitar player. He very much is a guitar player. But I'm trying to think of things from a vocalist's point of view. And even though obviously you can play anything like on a guitar that you could sing, or vice versa, it's different to think about the way that like the beat is, more specifically, is maybe not conducive to being a vocalist. And so I will just be like, that's really cool, but that's not like realistic to sing. Like, this doesn't make sense to be like, as a singer, you can bang that out on a guitar. I can't do like with my voice and have it sound like nice and, like it fits the song. So I wouldn't say that I'm like, here's my ideas, let's make them work. But I wouldn't say that I'm just like, yeah, whatever comes out, comes out. Like, it's a nice middle ground of like, what does the song need? How can we go with this? And what just feels right. Like, we very much let our music just be, what does it feel like it needs to be?
Mhm. And then when you go in to do albums, do you have, or do you approach it like, we know what concepts we're going to do this album? And like, here's what I'm bringing you to for themes, or
Mhm.
again, or do you just let them come as they come?
We've done two albums, so they're both quite different, but similar but different. So with Bloom was our first album, and to me Bloom was very much like a collection of songs that we had either already written or that we wrote for the album. And so there is really no cohesive theme to it. It's kind of just, there's no better way to put it, it's a collection of songs. For Inviting Warfare, we did not go into it with the goal of having a theme or a concept, so to say, but it actually kind of came out that way. Like, not every song is interconnected. Like, it's not a concept album by any stretch, but the themes of the song, for the most part, are all very related, or there is a message. If you start at the beginning, it kind of leads you through this message. And we laid it out in a way that the first half of the album are like our happy, kind of more positive, empowering songs. And as you get further down the album, they just get darker and darker, darker. And then it ends with like our heavy hitter, and what I think is darkest, like thematically, song that we have is Warfare.
Mhm.
And it was not intentional, but it just kind of fell into place that way. So it was not, we've never gone into writing being like, this is the theme it needs to be,
Right.
like, this are the ideas. But I think when I started writing lyrics, I did kind of have this idea of like, I have these ideas and these messages that I want to share with people, and these thought-provoking things that could mean one thing, or maybe they mean this thing. And I like to write with that duality. I really like to have kind of like a duality theme in my lyrics. And I think that really came out in Inviting Warfare, to the point where it does feel like, oh, wow, like they definitely had this concept in mind, but it just organically kind of became that.
Okay. Now you're a band that has original songs, but I've seen where you've definitely done some covers.
Yes.
So what makes you guys do those covers? What made you make those choices? And you even have
Mm,
videos for them. So what
yeah.
made you decide to do covers?
I think because we're actually going to be doing quite a few covers this year too. Um, when we started doing covers, it was just because we really loved the song. So our first cover was Clock Strikes by One OK Rock, the Japanese band I talked about. And that was just a song that we had already been jamming together. Like, we have been playing songs together for years before we started doing our own music.
Mhm.
And that was one that we just loved. We absolutely love that song. And we call it like our labor of love cover because it's a good cover and we love it. But it's really hard to like reach across the ethos to like a completely different, language speaking market because it is a Japanese band. And the song is originally in half Japanese and half English. And I had to translate it fully into English because I wanted
Okay.
it to be, I wanted it to be accessible to, our kind of fan base. But it is also kind of hard to be like, hey, here's a cover of this song that you have zero idea who this band is unless you're already kind of in that very niche area, right, of the world. And then when we did our other covers, which was Whispers in the Dark and Supermassive, those were definitely a little more intentional. Supermassive was a similar story. We already had been covering that song. I loved that song before I ever met Trevor and Wade. Like, judge me, that's fine. But like when the Twilight movies came out, the scene where they're like playing baseball and Supermassive Black Hole comes on, it like changed my life, which sounds so dramatic, but I was like, this song is blowing my mind right now. And that's how I got into Muse. And then when we all met, they're like, oh yeah, we jam that song all the time. And I was like, you don't say.
Meant to
So we
be,
ended up
meant to happen.
meant to be. So we had to do that one. And then Whispers in the Dark was quite intentional because we do find ourselves being very similar to Skillet. And we find a lot of our fans are also Skillet fans. That's how we've found quite a lot of our fans. And so it was a collab with another girl that I met through a Skillet fan page on Facebook.
Okay.
And we decided to do a song together. And we're like, we should just do Skillet. We all love this song. It's very like intentional, the band that we chose to cover, because it's not a hard sell. If you like Skillet, come listen to 2 or 3 of our songs. You're going to be like, okay, kind of the same realm, right? It was very intentional.
You've gotten good reception for these and people have been able to find you for them. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's kind of been it's been a balancing act of let's cover songs we love, but let's be a little bit intentional of the ones we cover also.
Yeah, that's great. One of the other things that I really love about you is that you have sort of a look. I wouldn't call it like full glam in the 80s and not full theatrical, although in one of your videos, you definitely have these cool face makeups and that, which I super love. But you guys definitely have a look and you're a fashion forward band and that. How important is that to you and why did you choose to make that as an aspect of your band?
To be like candid, like that's just Trevor and I like normal. Like that's just kind of how we dress. Like I can't say that like I go to the grocery store like this because I live in a small town and people would be very scared and confused. But that's just kind of our style that we already had. But I think another like the bigger part of it is just I don't want to tread lightly because I don't want to like insult anybody, but I've seen so many bands that like I love their music and then I go to watch a concert and they're in like sweatpants and a band tee.
Yep.
And I'm just like, to me, I'm like, if you're going to do something, and this is how we approach everything we do it with excellence, do it right. If you're going to say like, I'm a rock band, you should look like a rock band, whatever that looks like to you. It's not that you have to get up with leather skinny jeans and like studs, like you don't have to, but at least look like you tried, right? At least look like you put a little bit of thought into your appearance. And it's not all about appearance. Like it should be the whole package. We're very much like everything should be cohesive. We should look the part, we should sound the part, our websites, our product should be professional. And so we love it, absolutely. And like it's a passion of ours anyway. We just like to dress up and look our best, but we also feel like if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. And so that's why a big part of it is like, how can we be fashionable, but not like unapproachable? We don't want to put on like we did for our one video, like the full makeup, but like, that's not going to be the standard. We're probably not going to get up on stage and do like the kiss thing and like all that, that's not us, but we're never going to get up in like, I'm never going to get up in like my PJs and be like, hey guys, like I want to always look like you're paying me money to see me. The least I can do is be presentable and look like I care too. Right.
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying about treading lightly. Well, first of all, you're preaching to the choir because I agree with you completely. It's about the music. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't go see a band that does slap on their sweatpants because we've all paid to see that band play and we've all enjoyed that show. But no, I'm a big glam bands girl. And I had that big moment with Poison, Look What the Cat Dragged In. and they were full on, you know, as full on as you get. And so I
Yeah.
definitely appreciate the people who do make the effort, because you do pay the money,
Yeah.
and especially these days, I feel like you're paying like an obscene amount of money to go to like any show. So I definitely love like the theatrical bands, and I appreciate that about you guys. But I especially love that that's kind of who you really are, because I used to be the girl that would dress like that to the grocery store, but now I'm too lazy.
I mean, when I lived in a bigger city, yeah, I would, but we live in a farm town, and yeah,
And now you're
I
like,
don't, I don't,
"Ah."
I don't really care about the judgment. I really don't, but I'm also just like, I just don't want to deal with
And I
like
hear
the
you. I'm in the same
wow.
place. I'm like, yeah, I kind of do still want to dress like that when I go to the grocery store, but at the same
Yeah.
time, do I really enjoy taking my makeup off at the end of the day? I don't. I love makeup, but
Yeah.
do I enjoy taking it off at the end of the day? I don't. So I can go to the grocery store myself.
No.
It's okay. But no, I,
Yeah.
I do enjoy all of it. I enjoy the full package. And this sort of
Yeah.
brings me to the last two things. I mean, there's basically four things I really loved about you. And this is like the sound, the look, the connection you have with your fans, and the fact that you are like a do it all yourself sort of band. And to me, the connection to the fans and the doing it all yourself are sort of one and the same. There's like the doing it all yourself is one thing, but I think in doing it all yourself, the way you choose to do it is you're really building these very authentic connections with your fans and your fan base. So let's talk about the connections of the fans first, and then we'll move into that other part. You and I actually had a conversation the very first time we met about the importance that we both have the same philosophy about. Yeah, we both love to have millions and millions of subscribers, followers, or whatever, but we'd both rather have genuine connections with actual fans and not like bots and all that stuff. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about the importance to you about building that connection with people.
Absolutely. I think from the beginning, I didn't really think there was any other option, you know, and like people know when things aren't real. People know when your Instagram account's being, you know, run by a bot. People know when you've just followed them just to unfollow them because you're trying to grow your list. And it happens to me all day. I get like, oh, new follower. And I go and I look, and oh, they're following 5,000 people and they've got like 100 followers. Like they're just bot farming. Right. And I think like, it's like there's no longer this day where you see your idols on like a magazine cover and you go and you spend $20 to buy their CD, and then like that just works because there's no way to connect to your heroes or your artists anymore. Those days are gone. Like social media blew that out of the water. And so I think to still treat it like, well, I can't talk to my fans, like I'm too good for that, or I don't have time to talk to my fans, like that's just not authentic. If we're going to talk about being like authentic, and that's what people want. Like I was listening to an interview with you actually earlier today when I was getting ready, where you're talking to Melissa Fox, and she was just talking about authenticity, and she was talking about how like people know when things are fake. People know when they're being force fed something, and not everybody, but I feel like especially like in the rock industry, like people know when it's fake. Like rock is about being raw and real and honest and like rough around the edges. Like people know when you're phoning it in. And so to me, it was just like, we don't have a label. We are not signed to anything. Like no one is paying our bills. No one is investing in us besides ourselves and our fans. So what's the thing that makes the most sense? Should I spend time and money investing in the people that invest in me? Or should I spend my time and energy just getting vanity metrics? Because at the end of the day, whether you have 20,000 followers and 10 of them care, or you have 1,000 followers and 1,000 of them care, which one do you think is far more important? And that's why, at least for me, my philosophy is we should always be giving back to our fans. We should always be pouring into them. We should always be thanking them for believing in us. And I said this in an interview, like I think last year, but I'll say it again. It's super easy for you to hop on board with the band that's already blowing it out of the water and they've got 1 million fans. It takes no effort to be like, oh yeah, I like this band, when they have, 10 million streams day one on their song. It takes intention to care about a band when they get 100 streams on their song, when they have 2,000 followers. It takes you really believing in somebody to talk about them and to share. And that's why I think it's so important that we tell our fans like, thank you. And we involve them in our content. We involve them in our decisions, as much as makes sense for us, because they're the reason we are what we are. If it wasn't for our fans, I wouldn't even be sitting here talking to you. Right. So there's no point in snubbing your fans. And I hate when I see bands do that. And I understand as you grow, like there's a level inability to continually keep like such a personal connection because you're getting so many people bombarding you. So I understand it changes as you grow, but at the end of the day, I never want to give up that fan focused aspect. Like I always want our fans to feel like they can be involved in what we're doing in some way, shape, or form, because it's just, that's authentic and that's true. And they're the people that believe in us. They're the ones that someday will be helping us pay our bills. So I can't be like, you don't matter. I can't be like, yeah, bot farm it. Like that's not real. Right.
Yeah. I mean, and I think there's an authenticity on both sides. Like, first of all, as a fan, there's a difference between somebody who just jumps on the bandwagon, which I think happens in so many other genres of like, oh, that's so hot, or that's what's big right now. And I think rock fans are different. I think we like what we like. And I think we're more open to, going to see the local band or whatever it is. But it's hard I think the hard thing is just finding the bands, right? There's so many great bands out there and finding them. But then on the other side, there are bands that are huge that still manage that. They might not be able to respond to every single person because there might be too many, but they still manage to be on their own Instagram pages and to respond in whatever way they can. And certainly when you're like a newer band, I think it makes a difference. And we all know, we all know when somebody's on their own page or not. I mean, some people make it really explicitly clear, like, speaking on behalf, like second, when you're speaking in like third person or whatever, versus like, hey, it's me. Hey,
totally.
It's us, so it's very off-putting on something where you expect to connect directly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like I said, obviously bands that have like millions of listeners, like you understand the psychology is like, you understand they're probably not going to respond to your DM or like, your comment or personally things like that. But when we started this, I took the time to try and educate myself on like the marketing and the psychological aspect of treating your music like a business and not just as an art. If you want to be successful, you've got to also think about the business side of it. And the number one thing that I kept learning over and over again was just, you got to be authentic. You got to be honest, and you have to like, don't snub your fans. Like if they come to your page and they see that you've got, 1,000 followers and like one comment and you can't even like it or respond, they're not going to think that you care. Right.
Speaking of which, how are you able to balance being the artist and also being the person that has to do all the business stuff?
To be honest, it's very hard. And actually this week we kind of sat down and had a conversation about maybe we do need to kind of reevaluate what we're spending so much time on, because it's just us and we don't really have anybody that can run our, emailing or run our social media, or who can take these kind of auxiliary things that go into the whole thing. It's been a full-time job for Trevor and I for over 2 years now. It's taken more than full-time of us running this. And so as we grow, like it is becoming challenging to balance it and still keep, a sane mind and have a good attitude about stuff. And to be honest, again, like we did hit burnout pretty hard at the end of last year when we got Inviting Warfare out. I think all three of us, like, and our bandmate Wade, he's been working like crazy hours at his other job on top of this. And so all of us, as you know how it goes.
I know that
and
life.
So like, I think we've all been there at some point in our life where we're just like, I don't even know how I humanly can be stretched this thin, but yet somehow it's happening. And so December was kind of hard for us because we put like our heart and soul into this album and we got it out there, and it was just kind of like, and it was not, and it's not that it wasn't good, but I think when you put so much effort and love and care into something and you release it to the world, you want to be like, now we're on the cover of Forbes because we did this amazing thing.
Yes.
And I think that everything compounded over time for us to just be like, we need to just take a step back and reevaluate what's working for us and what's not. And so coming into this year, we're very much so going to look at, we know what people want, and that's more music. We know people want more music videos. We know people are here for the music. And instead of looking at our social media and being like, okay, if we just reach 5,000 followers, we'll be happy. If we just reach 10,000 followers, we'll be happy. As long as we're always chasing a number or some kind of goal that maybe isn't even guaranteeing that they're fans, because not all followers are fans and not all fans are followers. We're never going to feel like satisfied and happy or balanced. And that's the big thing. It's balance. That's our keyword for this year going into everything we make, is how can we be balanced about this? So I'd be lying if I said it's no problem. I'd be lying if I said that there aren't days where I just want to throw my phone against a wall and just like cut it all out. But I have to remember, and this is like the core reason why I do this, is that somebody needs to hear what we have to say. Somebody needs to hear the music that we create, the message that we're trying to send. And if we can like save one person's life with our music, like goal accomplished, you know, goal done. If somebody can be like, I heard your song and it changed my life, I could happy, like, Jesus, take me home, I'm done, right? Like, I'm good. So I think it's just remembering the big picture, you know, remembering that there are people that care and that rely on us and that truly love what we do to keep us going through the moments where I'm like, if I have to write one more social media post this week, I'm gonna quit. But yeah, it is hard, but we've been able to do it, and we're just working on having a little bit more balance about it now and not being afraid to reach out and get some help so that we can keep making more music, because that's what people want. They want the music, you know?
Yes, that's what it really comes down to. Now, you over the next year, what are some of the types of things that you're planning on doing, in addition to making music or sharing the music that you made, that you just made an album in December?
Yeah.
What are some of the things we have to look forward to?
So we are going to do, like, our big thing for the year is we're gonna put on a virtual live concert for all of our fans. That's the thing that like we've yet to get to, because unfortunately we founded our band literally right before COVID hit. And so it's like, it's twofold. So like we started in 2019, our first song came out December, followed by January. And then like by March, we're like locked down, like get in your house and don't leave. Right. And so then we're like, I guess we'll write some music. And I've heard quite a lot of artists say that you've interviewed and that I've just heard other places. How has COVID affected you? Well, it gave me a lot of time to write, and it gave us time to write 2 albums, right? So finally, we want to have the opportunity to actually give some of our fans like that live experience. Well, we still can't tour for, you know, many reasons. We can at least give people that experience of like, hey, we know that we've put the music out there and you know that our music, that you like it, but you want to know that it's going to be awesome live too. You know, you don't want to go see a band that you're like, I love this band. You see them live and you're just like, oof. You know, you want to know that they can bring it live. And so we want to give our fans that experience. It's another challenge, another thing for us to learn, because it's a whole new ball game to do live music than it is to record it. So that's like our big thing for the year. But we're going to keep making some music videos for our songs off Inviting Warfare, because some of them just really deserve a music video. And we actually, this week, we just let our fans vote on our next music video. So that's going to be really cool to see like what they chose. And then we can do that for them. And then we can kind of make maybe 1 or 2 more that we really like want to do, that we have some good ideas for. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we have a plan to do at least 4, but maybe 5 or 6 covers this year with music videos to go along with them. So we still have lots of content to give this year.
Plus, we'll also be doing a band interview with me, and we'll have Trevor and Wade on to do their interviews, and we'll be doing some fun stuff together. So everybody's going to have to, well, they should already be subscribed and following Instagram, Facebook, and I'm on Twitter now, which I don't know what to do with that, but we'll figure that out this year.
I couldn't tell you. I'm not a Twitter person.
And people kept asking me what my Twitter was. Guests, they're like, do you have a Twitter so I could post? And I'm like, I should probably do that. So I have a Twitter now, so we'll figure that out. So they have a bunch of videos that you should definitely check out. You have 2 albums, and they are called Bloom and Inviting Warfare. Bloom is last year, and Inviting Warfare just came out last month. So definitely check those out. There's this video. There is 2 more interviews coming out with 2 other members of the band. And then there's a band interview, which I think is going to be the very next one. So that's coming up really soon, in about a month or so, I think. So we'll get those dates out to everybody really soon. So anyways, check out everybody, and check out the everything below will be written so that you can follow everybody in the band down here. So give everybody some love. And most of all, remember to leave a really nice comment for Bethany, because that's the only kind you should ever leave for anybody ever, in my opinion.
That's right. Correct. Yes. Kindness goes much further.
I just have literally never left anybody anything other than a kind comment in my life. I don't understand.
No. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything. That's what my mom always told me.
Yeah. mine too. Also, I don't bother to watch people's videos if I don't enjoy them. So, and therefore I have nothing to say. And so I don't, that's just my
Correct.
philosophy. So
Exit.
anyways, leave a nice comment for my guest, Bethany, who's amazing and who you'll be
Thank you.
seeing again very soon. But Bethany, thank you so much for being a guest. And I'm looking forward to seeing you with the band and just hanging out with you guys more. And I also have a surprise coming up, which everybody will learn about soon, having to do with you guys. But anyway, it was nice seeing you again, and we'll see you again soon. And again, everybody, remember to like this video, remember to subscribe, remember to check out Stands on Sapphires. They also have a YouTube channel that has all of their videos. They obviously have an Instagram, and all of that is below. So thank you for watching this video, and I will see you all soon. I hope you enjoyed this episode of MetalNet TV. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like this video, and please remember to leave a nice comment for Bethany. I'll see you next time.